Evening, teacher.
Good evening, good evening. Oh yes, I'm fine too. I'm just a little sad because one of my relatives died last week.
Wow.
But it wasn't from COVID. So it was from another illness. But well, so as you know, we are humans. So one day we are, and the other maybe we're not. All right,
Yes.
but
Yes.
we have to continue. We have to go on. The
Yes.
show goes on. All right, so we are going to start this class, but making a fast feedback about what we did the last class. How much can you remember about the last class? Can you tell me? Tell me, how much can you remember about the last class, the last session that we have? What did we talk about? What did we talk about? No, nobody? Remember that in this module, we are in a new module. This module is related to listening skill, right? So we are analyzing some aspects of this skill. Sometimes this skill is forgotten, no? Can you remember? Can you remember what we did the last session? What we talked about the last session? No, nobody? Nobody can remember about what we did the last session? No, who says me? Who says me? Don't be afraid, don't be afraid.
Good evening, teacher.
Good evening, good evening. Good evening, everyone. So we were, don't worry. So we were talking about what we did the last class. Can you remember what we talked about the last class? Juan Carlos, I think your microphone is on. Can you tell us about what we did the last class? Oh no, okay. Okay, Juan Carlos.
Sorry.
No, don't worry. But what can you remember about what we did the last class? Tell me.
Yeah.
No, nobody? What we talked about the last class, tell me. As I told you before, we talked about listening, no? But what do we talk about listening? No, nobody? So first of all, now we are going to make a review, a fast review. First of all, we were talking about what is listening, no? So what listening is about? So can you tell me what is listening? Yeah, Lourdes, we were talking about skill. Yeah, yes, Lourdes. We were talking about some specific skills, no? Inside listening. Listening is the general, the main, no? The macro skill. Then we talked about some sub skills or micro skills. What were they? What were them? Lourdes, for example, wrote in the chat one of them, listen for detail. Can you remember any other one? Can you remember any other one? Any other sub skill or micro skill? No, nobody? Any other micro skill? Lourdes wrote one. Listen for detail. Another. Remember that we compared to reading, right? When we talked about reading, we have two specific skills that we are going to develop. Or sometimes we use this as a technique or strategy for reading, no? There was a skimming and a scanning, no? When you read fast to get a general idea, and when you read fast to get some specific information. Something similar happens when we talked about listening skill, no? As Lourdes wrote here on the chat, one of them is listen for detail, listening for detail. Any other one? Please, please, don't be afraid, don't be afraid.
Listening for gist, like that.
Aha, yes, listening for gist. Aha, that's it, very good, very good. Any other one? Listening for gist, listening for detail. What else? What else, what else? No more, no more? Listening for...
Inferential listening. Inferential.
Aha, inferential listening. That's it, very good. Inferential listening, what else?
Specific information.
Aha, yes, very good, very good. Lourdes, listening for a specific information. So notice, we have four, yeah, remember, we have four micro skills or sub skills in listening. So we have listening for gist. Listening for gist, remember, is when you listen to get the main idea, the general idea, all right? This is listening for gist. Listening for a specific information, so the name says all, or you're going to listen to get some specific parts of the oral taste, no? Some
Scanning, teacher.
Yeah, this is in reading, no? This is in reading. So if we want to compare listening for a specific information and scanning, both are the same. The difference is the type of test, no? Scanning is when you have a written test, and listening for a specific information is when you have an oral test, no? But the purpose is the same, to get a specific information, no? Scanning and listening for a specific information have the same purpose. The other one, listening in detail, no? Listening for detail, and inferential listening. So here you have these four sub skills, all right? Don't forget about these four sub skills. What else? What else did we talk about? Can you tell me? What else? Can you remember?
Yes, teacher, about the characteristic of spoken English.
Yes, excellent. That's it. The characteristics of a spoken English, of a spoken language. No? And we made some differences with the written language. No? We analyzed some specific aspects of the oral language in contrast to the written language or the written test. No? So here we talked about this. And also we talked about some difficulties that we could have when we listen, no? When we listen as students, no? So here you have some difficulties, no? The content, the delivery, the environment. So we analyze some specific aspects related to the difficulty of listening. Okay, so now, as you can see on your screen, yes, can you watch the slides on your screen? This the first slide, teach listening strategies and sources. So today we are going to talk about different aspects of listening, but now we are going to analyze some aspects of good listening test. What are the characteristics of good listening tests? All right. And also we're going to, yeah, somebody is speaking. Oh, please don't forget to turn off your microphones, please. Yeah. Gabrielle. Okay, Gabrielle, please. Your microphone. Gabrielle. Yeah. Okay, so today, as I told you, we are going to talk about the characteristics of a good listening test. No? We, as teachers, we must choose the correct listening test, the oral test that our students could listen and could develop this skill, all right? So we're going to analyze some characteristics. Then we are going to talk about the differences between the listening material. So we have in general two, the authentic and the scripted material or input, all right? And then finally, we are going to talk about the strategies that a good listener must have, all right? So let's start. We are going to start now with the first part, and we are going to start with, oh, please don't forget, don't write on the board. Somebody is writing on the board. Yeah, I'm going to erase it. Don't forget that you don't have to write. Yeah. All right. So here we are going to start with this phrase said by Noonan. Noonan is a famous linguist. Yeah, it was said in 1998. So he said, most people think that being able to write and speak in a second language means that they know the language. However, if they do not have deficient listening skills, it is not possible to communicate effectively. So what do you think about this opinion that it was said by Noonan? Noonan, as I told you before, it's a famous linguist. Yeah? It's a person who analyzes the process of learning and acquiring languages. So he said that some people think that they could speak or they could write, so they know the language. But if you don't have deficient listening skills, according to Noonan, it's not possible to communicate effectively. What do you think about it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell me, please, your ideas. What do you think? Do you think it's important to have some skills related to listening, or it's enough to have writing skills and speaking skills? What is your opinion? Tell me, please. What do you think about it? No, nobody? Please tell me, don't be afraid, Tell me your ideas. What do you think? Do you agree with this? Do you agree with Noonan?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, yes. Why? Why do you agree? No, nobody? Tell me, please, tell me. Don't be afraid. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about this comment.
I agree in part because this is true, this is real. Because if you don't have the efficient listening skills, it's impossible to communicate in a second language.
All right, yeah. Why would it be impossible? Okay, Juan Carlos, continue. Go on.
Yeah. But not it is not impossible. But you need a lot of practice. For example, I think that is.
All right, yeah, all right, Juan Carlos, that's good. So you partially agree with Noonan, all right.
Yeah, partially agree, yeah.
All right, okay. Anybody else?
It's necessary to understand.
Okay, it's necessary.
To understand the conversation to be possible to communicate effectively.
Aha, yes, that's the point. That's a good point. When you want to communicate with somebody else in an oral language, obviously, in an oral language. So here you have to communicate, you have to understand the other person, right? If you couldn't understand what the other person is talking, so you couldn't respond or answer, right? This is your idea, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, Luis, that's good. Very good, Luis. Yes, it becomes a Babel Tower. Okay, that's it. All right, that's good. Okay, so here you have the importance of listening, right? It's so important. It doesn't mean that the other skills are not important. Obviously, when you want to learn or acquire a language, the four skills are important in order to communicate with other people. No? Could be in a written language or in an oral language. So here is so important. But what happens sometimes when we teach English, we sometimes omit the listening skill. No, we are more focused on the vocabulary and the grammar, all right? And sometimes on the writing, but sometimes you forgot to develop some listening skills or speaking skills, all right? Maybe because of the content of the structure of the book or the material, or maybe you don't have enough time, no? So it depends on so many factors, but don't forget that listening is an important skill when you want to learn or acquire a language, all right? In order to understand each other, okay? It's so important. Okay, now, we are going to continue with the next part. Thanks for your comments on your opinions. Yeah, don't be afraid to communicate, to say your sentence, your opinions. It is very important, all right? Now, we have to pass to the other one. We are going to go back to the first part of this module. What is listening? So listening, remember, is a form of communication and is an active process. Remember, it's an active process. Listening is the receptive use of language, and since the goal is to make sense of the speech. The focus is on meaning rather than the language. If you understand, you codify what you listen, all right, what you hear. Listening is considered to involve the active selecting and interpreting of information coming from auditory clues so that a listener can identify what is happening and what is being expressed. No? So it's so important. Remember, listening involves this selecting and interpreting information, all right? What you receive, what you get. That's why the listener can identify what is happening or what is being expressed. No? You can understand what the other person is talking. Okay, the message, right? The message of the speaker. So this is listening, don't forget it. It's a form of communication. It's active, yeah? It's not passive, it's active. Yeah? It's the receptive use of language. Okay, we interpret, we select information in order to understand what is happening or what is being expressed. Yeah? So this is in a summary what listening is about, okay? Now, the importance of listening. So we were talking about these parts on the first slide, no? According to Rost, is another famous linguist and teacher also, professor, 1994, explains the importance of listening in language classroom as follows. One of the first aspects why is listening so important? Because listening is vital in the language classroom. For example, when you want to communicate with your students, you are going to speak. Your students are going to listen to you, similar to what you are doing, right? I'm speaking, you are listening to me. Maybe you are reading some parts, some sentences, but you are listening to me, all right? So why is vital in the language classroom? Because it provides input for the learner. Remember, the input is what you receive, all right? This is the input, what you receive. Without understanding input at the right level, any learning simply cannot begin. So maybe I'm speaking, the teacher is speaking, but maybe some students can't understand what you are talking. So the learning would be impossible, no? It would be complicated, no? Maybe there are other ways, but it would be so hard, no? To learn something you couldn't understand what the other person is talking. So that's why here listening is vital in the language classroom. Another aspect why listening is important is that a spoken language provides a means of interaction for the learner. It means learners must interact to achieve understanding. Access to speakers of the language is essential. So we were doing this interaction just a few minutes ago, right? So I said some command, you were talking about this. No, notice that we are going to combine not just listening skill. No? So I told you before in the previous lessons, when I said a listening, it doesn't mean that you are going to focus just on this skill. All the skills are involved. No? Some of them could be speaking, could be writing. No? We are combining listening and speaking, right? So you listen to me and then you have to give your opinions. So this is an interaction and I listen to you and I'm going to give you a feedback. So notice there is an interaction, all right? In order to achieve to get understanding. That's the purpose here. So here we have two aspects why listening is important. Let's pass to another two more. The third aspect is that authentic spoken language presents a challenge for the learner to understand language as native speakers actually use it. For example, we were talking about this aspect in the last session. No? Remember that we were talking about why sometimes it's so difficult to understand when a native speaker talks. Why? Because they do some processes, no? Some features of connected speech, no? Assimilation, elision, intrusion. Notice that native speakers use these kind of features, no? These kind of processes. So sometimes we don't know about it or we are not accustomed to hear that. So for us, it's so complicated, no? Notice so for the students. So it would be so complicated too, all right? So it's very important that they could receive authentic spoken language. It's very, very important. Even, no, sometimes it would be a challenge for them. No? Now, let's pass to the other aspect. Listening exercises provide teachers with a means for drawing learners' attention to new forms, vocabulary, grammar, new interaction patterns in the language. No? So here we have the learners. We are focused on the learner's attention. So they must be concentrated, you know, to the speaker, in this case, the teacher. Because they could get some new vocabulary, structures, the grammar, no, and interaction patterns in the language, all right? So that's why the listening exercises are so useful to draw learners' attention. So don't forget about these four, yeah? We are going to go back. It's vital because we could have here understanding the input, yeah? Understanding the input. Then it's a means of interaction, yeah? Don't forget it. It's a means of interaction. The other one, the third aspect, because we're going to give to our students authentic spoken language, and they could recognize some aspects developed by native speakers. And also we are going to use the exercises to draw learners' attention, to catch the attention of our students, all right? So this is the aspects why listening is important when we learn or acquire a language, in this case, the English language. Now, the situation with the listening skill, as I told you before, when we teach English, sometimes, no, because of the time, because of the context, because of the content of the book or the period. So there are many reasons that we omit some parts of the exercise of the skills. No? And one of the skills that we omit is the listening skill. So here we have, notice here a contrast, yeah, a contrast that we have the natural order of language learning. So what is the natural order? First we listen, then speak, read, and write. But when we teach, sometimes we make the inverse way. It doesn't mean that you're going to start with writing, but we don't start with the listening. Maybe we start with the reading, or maybe we pass to the writing, and then we pass to the speaking. But in speaking is related to the listening, right? So, but notice the natural order. Remember when we were little kids, 1, 2 years old. What's the first thing that we do when we acquire a language? Listen. The baby starts listening to their parents, neighbors, sister, brother, no, grandfather. They just listen. So we call this a silent period. We talk about the linguistic aspect. This is the silent period. We have a silent period. We receive, we have just the input. And then we start talking, we start speaking, no? The baby, no, the little kid starts producing new words, some words, no? Maybe they are not pronounced well, no? But they start producing, notice, speaking. Then we pass here to the reading, they start reading. And finally, you write. And so this is the natural order. And sometimes when we teach a language, we don't follow this order, no? We change. Maybe we start with the reading, then we pass to the writing, then to the speaking, listening, or listening, speaking, but we change the order, no? We change the natural order in order to acquire or learn a language, all right? Now, we are going to interact again. So we were talking about listening, but listening has some components, all right? We have some components of listening. Can you tell me, do you have any idea what would be the components of listening? No sub skills, no micro skills, components. This is related to the process of listening. Do you have an idea? The process of listening. Try to identify what is the process of listening. The step of the stages in order to listen to somebody else. Anybody? Anybody? Sorry, I have a terrible sore throat. Can you tell me? Yes or no? Do you have an idea? What are the components of listening? I'm gonna help you. I give you a hint, a clue. It is
paraphrasing.
Yeah, paraphrasing, all right. I think this is more related to speaking, no? Because paraphrasing is when you say something in your own words, right? Yeah, any other one, any other one? Could be when you respond, no? You listen to somebody else and maybe you're going to respond to the speaker. Yeah, you could paraphrase. Yeah, all right. What else? What is?
Reflection. Reflection.
Perceiving,
Oh, I couldn't listen to you so well.
perceiving, teacher, perceiving.
Receiving. Yeah, how do we call this receiving? It has a
Or
name.
perceiving. Perceiving.
Perceiving. Yeah, when you perceive the sounds, no? Because when you listen, you perceive some sounds, no? For example, I'm talking to you, I'm producing sounds, but I join the sounds to get meaning, right? And you listen to these sounds, you perceive these sounds, no? For example, if we go back to phonetics, no? Remember that phonetics is divided in 3 branches, no? Can you remember the branches of phonetics? What are the branches of phonetics? I'm gonna help you. One of them is the articulatory phonetics. It refers to the production, the articulation of sound, how we are going to articulate or produce sounds. Then, when we transmit these sounds through the sound waves, this is the acoustic phonetics. Remember, acoustic phonetics. And then when we perceive or receive and we decodify these sounds, this is the auditory phonetic. Yeah, the auditory phonetic.
You apply.
Yeah. Okay, so you told one of them, one of these components when you receive, but when you receive, what else? That's it. You just receive, you just perceive the sounds and that's all.
You try to understand.
Ah, yes. All right.
Remembering.
What is it?
Remembering.
Yeah, remember. Yeah, okay. So here you have some components of listening. So we are going to start with this. I'm gonna tell you here what are the components, but we are going to do a little exercise about it. Listening is composed of 6, remember, 6 distinct components. What are they? Notice here, hearing, attending, interpreting, evaluating, remembering, and responding. So these are the 6 components of listening: hearing, attending, interpreting, evaluating, remembering, and responding. And I'm going to give you here the definitions, but the definitions are in disorder. What you have to do now is to reorder them. You have to tell me what is the definition for each component, all right? Remember, these definitions are in disorder. So you have to tell me what is the correct definition for each component, all right? So I'm gonna give you 2 minutes and you have to tell me your answers one by one, yeah? One by one. So you have 2 minutes to read and try to match the definition with the component, all right? 2 minutes to do it. Okay, are you ready to tell me the answers one by one? Yeah, you can speak or you can write the answer on the chat. Just a letter, or maybe you can say the whole sentence. Yeah. Let's start with the first one. Hearing. What is hearing? What?
Can be the letter F.
Letter F. Aha.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees?
F.
Flor, Magali, I don't know who's speaking. Magali, Flor?
Magali. Yes,
Magali.
Magali.
Floor.
Magali.
Yes, floor.
Okay, Flor, Magali, because all of
Floor
you.
2.
Okay, Flor too. All right. So F, everybody agrees with Magali and Flor? Letter F?
D.
D. Aha. One of you says D. Hearing. The process of decoding the symbols. Yeah. F, D. Anybody else? Anybody else? You can write it on the chat. You can write it on the chat, teacher. Letter F for me. Aha. Lourdes says F too. Excellent. Nobody else? Nobody else? You're not so sure? Okay. Yeah, let's see. Aha, Vanessa. Very good, Vanessa. Letter F. Okay, let's see here. So sorry. Now you have the second answer. Yeah, letter F. Remember, hearing means that you're going to receive. It's the physiological process of receiving sounds and other stimuli. All right, this is hearing. All right, hearing. Hearing is part of listening. Yeah, they are not the same. Yeah, hearing is just receiving the sounds. No, you just receive the sounds. Maybe you couldn't understand, but you're receiving the sounds. This is hearing. All right. For example, if I start talking right now in Chinese and you don't know Chinese, you're hearing to me, right? You can listen to me, but you don't completely understand what I'm talking. So this is hearing. You just receive the physiological process of receiving sounds and any other stimuli. And the other one, so I don't know what happened with my laptop. Yeah, I think I made it twice the click. Attending. Attending is B. Attending is the conscious and unconscious process of focusing attention on external stimuli. So you attend, you are focused, all right? That's why conscious. Sometimes this is unconscious, of focusing attention on external stimuli. What about number 3?
D.
D, all right. Aha, Magali says D. Vanessa, D. Lourdes, D. All right, very good, very good. What about the others? Flower, okay, flower, D.
D.
All right,
D.
very good. Doris, D. Okay, let's see here. Yes, you are right. Interpreting. Interpreting is the process of decoding the symbols or behavior attended to. So while you're focusing your attention, now you're going to decode, notice, to decodify the sounds, or sometimes behavior, all right? So notice, this is interpreting. What about number 4? Aha, very good, Joaquin. Juan Carlos says E. Aha, evaluating, E.
E.
E, excellent, Maury, E. Okay, everybody says E, flower, E, okay. Yes, you're right. It's letter E, evaluating. So the process of deciding the value of the information to the receiver, all right? If you value, you are going to analyze, yeah, this is going to be helpful for me, you know, it's good, important, it's interesting. So you're evaluating, all right, the information to the receiver. What about number 5? Aha, Flor says A. Uh-huh,
A.
everybody says A. But remembering is letter C, the process of placing the appropriate information into short-term or long-term storage. Remember, what is the meaning of storage? It's where you keep, no? This is maybe a technical word related to computers, no? Storage is the place where you keep your information, all right? So you are going to remember what you hear, what you listen. Sometimes you hear something, you listen something, and in a short time you forgot. But sometimes it's gonna last for a long time, right? So this is remembering, yeah? Don't forget it. It's placing the appropriate information into short or long-term storage, yeah? Remember, storage is where you keep your information, all right? And finally, number 6, here you have number 6. Oh, A, responding, the process of giving feedback to the source and or other receivers. So you respond, all right? You're giving a feedback. Remember, what is the meaning of feedback?
Like
Retroalimentación.
rhetorical.
Yeah, so you're going to feedback.
Retroalimentación.
Yeah, this is in Spanish, all right? Yeah, excellent. It's, but in English, how do you say feedback? This is when you
Give more information.
When you
oh
review,
right, yeah,
when you review,
excellent. When you give more information, you check up, you review something, no? Or you comment about something. This is a feedback, all right? So responding is the process of giving feedback to the source. It means could be the test, the listening test, or the other, the receivers, all right? So notice all the different components that we have on listening, the process of listening. Hearing, when you receive the sounds. Attending, when you focus the attention to the other person, all right? Interpreting, when you decodify the sounds or any other stimuli, right? Behavior, no? Here it says. The other one, evaluating. So it means that you are going to value, remember, value the information, if it is important or it's according to you, right? And remembering is how long you can keep the information, could be short term or long term. And responding, when you give feedback, no, you answer, you respond to the other person, and it produces interaction. Remember, it produces the interaction. That's why we say that listening is an active process, is not a passive process. You just not listen. You have to decodify. You have to understand the meaning, the message of the other person is talking, or maybe a listening or a listening test, no? Then we are going to talk about these two types of sources, no? Now, don't forget these components of listening skill, all right? Now, let's continue with the other ones. Now we are going to analyze, this is the second point on this session. We are going to analyze the two types of listening tests. We have two, authentic versus pedagogic. What would be the differences between these two types of listening tests? Can you tell me something about it? Authentic material, pedagogic material. Do you have an idea? Oh, don't worry, Indira. Good evening, good evening.
Good evening. Authentic material is the realia. The material is original of the, for example, UK, I don't know, brochure or American, some uh, public article or something.
Yeah.
And pedagogic, it's the material of the teachers do, no?
Yeah. All right. That's good. That's good. That's good. Very good. Very good. Any other one? Any other idea about authentic and pedagogic material?
Authentic material is the original, the real,
Mhm.
listening, and pedagogic is possible the half step of grammatical rules.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Real, listening, and the other grammatical. All right. Okay. Now we are going to check up your answers, your respondents. All right. So let's see here. So we are going to start talking about the authentic. Yeah? First, the authentic, and then the pedagogic. So we have here two. Authentic refers to the use in teaching of text, photographs, video selections, realia, as your partner says, and other teaching resources that were not especially prepared for pedagogical purposes. This material wasn't prepared, as your partner says. The pedagogic is what the teacher does, right? What the teacher prepares, all right? What the teacher maybe mix up or create. But the authentic, no. You're going to take some listening materials from real life, as your other partner says, no? Could be some listening tests, photographs, video selections, realia, and other any teaching resources that are not specially prepared for pedagogical purposes, all right? And what about the other one? What about the pedagogic? So refers to test books and other specially developed instructional resources that have been prepared to include examples of specific grammatical items, as your other partner says, these course features. So notice the difference between the authentic material, listening material, and the pedagogic listening material. So don't forget it. The authentic is real, something real. And tests, photographs, video selections, realia that you use to teach to your students. Pedagogic is what teachers do, or some professionals do, no? When they publish some textbooks, no? And they have a purpose to instruct, all right? To teach something. And they include some specific grammatical items and discourse features, all right? So notice here the differences between the authentic and the pedagogic material or listening materials. Now, we are going to analyze, we are talking about what kind of materials or what kind of listening tests do we have. Remember, we have two, authentic and pedagogic. So now we're going to analyze what makes a good listening test. According to your opinion, what would be the characteristics for a good listening test? What would be the characteristics of a good listening test?
Very clear.
Yeah, all right. Very clear. What else? What else?
According at the level of the student.
Yes. Appropriacy. Very good. According to
intonation or a good intonation.
With a good intonation, all right. What else? What else? No more ideas? Good intonation, according to the level of the students. Very clear. What else? What else?
With
Any other?
pictures.
Excuse me again, please. Could you repeat again?
With pictures.
With pictures. All right. Yeah. Let's see here. Listening, remember, listening test. Yeah, with pictures, photographs. Step one, you're listening. Yes?
No.
Vamos, Chuto.
Oh, excuse me? Oh, don't forget to turn off your microphones. Okay, thank you. Thank you. No more ideas? No more ideas about what makes a good listening test?
Maybe it should be a topic that likes to the students.
Aha, yes, that's a good point. A topic of interest. Remember, if our students are not interested in what they are going to listen, they are not going to focus their attention, right? Remember the process. Hearing, they could hear, all right? They could hear because they are going to receive. They are in the classroom. They are not in another place. So if you put a listening test, they are going to hear it. But maybe they are not going to pay attention what they're hearing because they are not interested. So the teacher must create this interest. Or that topic, as your partner says, the topic of the listening test must be interesting for students. So let's see here. We are going to have two aspects in order to consider a good listening test. One of them is the content, and the second one is the delivery. The content is what is the listening about, no? The listening test about. And the delivery is how we're going to sing, no? The mission of this listening test. In the content, notice here, in the content, we have other factors. Some of them you told me. The first one is the interest factor. Second, entertainment factor. The third, cultural accessibility. 4, speech acts. 5, discourse structures. 6, density. And finally, 7, the language level. Notice you told me some of them, no? The level, it must be appropriate to the level of the students. It must be interesting. The topic must be interesting. All right? So here you have this. The delivery. Let's pass to the delivery. What aspects, what factors do we consider in the delivery? The length. How long is the listening test? 2, quality of recordings, if it is clear or not. Speed and number of speakers, how fast a person speaks, and how many people are speaking, and the accent. Notice here these aspects in order to consider a good listening test. And we are going to analyze these aspects, each of them, with some questions. Let's start with the first one. Will this be interesting for my students? Notice you have to ask yourself, if you choose a listening test, will this be interesting for my students? So the first aspect is the interest. Now, this is one of the most important factors when a student listens to something. Teacher gives lists of topic to students to choose and take into teacher's consideration. The other part is so important that pre-listening exercises or tasks or activities will raise interest in the topic to every student. So as I told you before, no, when we talk about the skill lessons, there are 3 stages, no? Pre, while, and post. So it's so important in order to create the interest for the students, we have to develop pre-listening tasks because these activities will raise interest in the topic to every students. And the other factor that is related to interesting, oh, don't worry, Juana, don't worry. is the entertainment factor. So it's part of the interest. So if the listening is fun, is motivating, no, you can have a lot of fun here with listening something. So they are interested. And it helps building up interest factors. So notice these two related to the interest, no? The interest and the entertainment factors. So we answered the question, will this be interesting for my students? This listening test will be interesting for my students? They will have fun listening to this? Or no? Sometimes the audios are not specifically to where students have fun, but some of them no, because maybe when you use songs, no? Most of the times we teach our students English, no? With songs. And some of them, not all, but most of them, I think so, are so interested when you put a song in the English classes, all right? If it is updated, if it is in trend, better, all right? So here, notice this factor, yeah? Don't forget this factor. Let's pass to the other one. Will my students understand the context and ideas? So you have here the cultural accessibility. So teacher needs to make sure that content make tests accessible and extend to a student's cultural background issue. Remember that is so important, no? When we talk about the top-down and bottom-up models of listening and reading, it's so important, the background. No? So we need to make sure that our content of the test, the listening test, could be accessible and extend, not only accessible, could extend our students' cultural background. So it's so important to do that. No? Sometimes, for example, some people criticize when we use test books, no? Because in the test books, you have some listening, no? Some audios, and sometimes these audios are not related to the background knowledge of our students, right? So some people criticize, no, this is not contextualized. No, we call this famous word. No, it is not contextualized. So students are not gonna have a successful learning because it's not contextualized. And sometimes they have reason, no? Because here there is no coherence between what they listen with their cultural background. So it's not so accessible, no? This is the meaning of this, accessible, all right? So they couldn't understand so well. If the listening test is related to their background knowledge and could expand, not only accessible, could expand the students' background knowledge, this is a very good listening test, all right? So that's why the question here says, will my students understand the context and ideas of what they are listening? This is one of the questions. Let's continue with the other one. We are here with the content. Notice we have seen 7 factors of the content. Yeah, here I think the question is not the correct. I think here's this a mistake. This is related to the speech acts. Yeah, the speech acts. So if the students could recognize the different kind of test, all right, the different kind of test, and this is related to the speech acts. So here we have the type of a speech act makes good listening test. What does it mean, type of a speech act? The different types of tests, no? So different types of a speech. So we have fixed speech, narrative, discussion, abstract tests. So we have the different types of a speech. In the fixed speech, we have self-introduction, or maybe an airport announcement. Here you have some examples of fixed speech with some fixed phrases, no? Some fixed structures that we call fixed speech. No? Then we have the other that is more open, no? Narrative and discussion. It's dynamic. It's dynamic. They don't have some fixed structure or fixed phrases. And the last one is the abstract, no? When we talk about something abstract, our students are going to listen to something abstract, all right? So we have here the different type of a speech act. The other one, as you know, is that a speech has different functions, all right? When you speak for many purposes: to greet someone, to ask for someone, to apologize to someone. These are the functions. Remember, these are the functions. Maybe you want to complain, you want to say sorry, you want to ask for permission. So notice we have different functions. That's why speech, remember, is where we talk, no? Where we speak. So when we speak, we have many purposes of speaking, no? And we are going to listen to these different purposes, all right? Different functions, yeah? Don't forget about this. Rule for teaching listening lower level students. So we have to use more predictable and familiar speech act, all right? And the second, use transactional dialogues, no? So this is to create interaction, all right? To create interaction. When we say more predictable and familiar speech, it means that we are, imagine we are teaching to little kids or children from 11 or 12, we're not going to make them listen some business, relate the topic of business to our students, because this is not familiar to them, right? They cannot predict easily. So we have to adequate, our listening according to the level, no? According to the level of our students, all right? So this is the fourth factor, the speech acts. Then we have another question. Does it discuss abstract concepts or is it based on everyday transactions? So this is related to the discourse structures. Here you have the definition, referred to the organization of a piece of text. So we have here some patterns, some common patterns: phenomenon, cause and effect, situation, problem, response, evaluation, or problem solution. So notice here how we organize the piece of text, no? If we talked about the listening is about phenomenon, if the listening involves some causes and effects, or a situation, problem, response of evaluation, notice here that you have an organized structure, or problem solution. No? Notice here you have these everyday transactions, all right? The other one is, another question related to the content is, does the information come thick and fast, or are there moments in which the listener can relax? This is related to density, the amount of information in the test. Remember, density is the amount of information in the test. So for example, when you make our students to listen to a dialogue, no, a conversation with a lot of words, so the speakers use a lot of words. So this is density, no? The amount of information in the test. The less redundancy present, the more demanding listening is. This is one of the aspects, no? The less redundancy present, the more demanding listening is. Here, for example, you have some news headlines, no? When they're going to listen, no, to some news, and they are going to listen to the headlines, all right? So notice here, yeah, does the information come thick? Remember, it is the density, are the moments in which this listener can relax. There are some pauses. They are not talking and talking and talking and talking. So the listener or the student could get confused, nor stressed. No? Oh, too much, oh, too fast. No, so they could get stressed because it's too dense. No? It's too dense. This is the density aspect. Yes, Luis, yeah, it's hard to find areas that we can consider useful. Yes, preparing is an option, but it's also time consuming. That's right, yes. Yeah, material books follow a chain of grammar points, but a diversity of topics made it non-engaging. Yes, you're totally right, Luis. Yes, this is a challenge for us, no? As a teachers, we have or we must choose some material. In this case, the listening test appropriate for our students. No? That's why we're considering some factors in order to choose the correct or the appropriate listening test for our students. But as you told us, yes, it's time consuming. Yes, it's time consuming, all right? But then I'm gonna give you some sources where you can find some audios according to the levels. And then I'm gonna give you, don't worry, I'm gonna help you. Now, here we have the other one. Is the majority of the vocabulary and grammar appropriate for my students? Notice the difference with the previous one. The previous one was related to density. So the amount of information is tough, it's so thick. No? But now here is according to the content of the language itself, the vocabulary and the grammar structures appropriate for my students. So here you have the language level, no? The language itself. So many new lexical items and high-level grammatical structures will be difficult. No? When we hear or we choose a listening test, we have to analyze the vocabulary. No, lexical items is the vocabulary, all right? Lexis, remember Lexis is the group of words, no? This is the lexis. So the lexical items are related to the vocabulary and the structures that this listening test has. It's so important to analyze this. The other is the aspect or level is complexity, long sentences, full of noun phrases, packed with meaning, hard for students to process, no? So as I told you before, they receive long sentences with some not common structures. So it's very, very advisable to choose the appropriate listening test. And the degree or formality, you know? If that test is so formal, maybe they couldn't understand what they listen, no? Or maybe it's too informal, no? Because when we speak in a colloquial English, sometimes native speakers use some special language, all right? Like jargons or slangs or idioms. Oh, and the students could say, oh, what is he talking? No, I can't understand, because this language is figurative, no? This language is figurative. So it depends on that. Notice all the aspects that we must take into account before choosing a listening test. So this is related to the content. Remember, this is related to the content. Now, we are going to analyze the difference between these levels of formality. No? We have here two conversations. You're gonna have these two conversations. Greetings, we have to analyze the greetings in informal conversations and greetings in formal conversations. So notice this dialogue between Anna and Tom. And the second dialogue is the same, no? The two people, but notice the differences. In the greetings, can you recognize what are the differences in the greetings between these two dialogues, these two conversations?
Yeah.
So?
Different kind of words.
Yeah, for example, we are going to take into account here. I'm going to put it, yeah. Notice here, this one. Yeah, okay. Here, notice this expression, no? What's up? So?
Yeah. Informal
see?
expressions. Informal expressions.
So the formal is?
Formal, good morning.
No, oh, Tom, what's up? Oh, good morning. Good morning. Oh, hi. Notice here. Hi, no? Hi. Let's say good morning. You say hi. Here's saying good morning. Huh? So notice here that we are going to use, how are you? This is the formal, no? How are you? What would it be the informal? What's up with you? Eh? What's up with you? Notice here how we change the language according to the formality. So we're going to use other expressions, all right? We're going to use other expressions. That's why sometimes when we give this listening to our students, if they are not used to listening to these kind of expressions, so they are not going to understand when you say, oh, what's up with you? Oh, it's what's up, what's up, what's up? No, they couldn't get it, right? So you have to adequate, notice, you have to adequate the listening tests according to the level, according to the formality, according to the grammatical structures. No, this is the language, all right? This is the language that you're going to present. Okay, so we have here two conversations, one in an informal context and the other in a formal context, all right? Okay, now, yeah. Let's pass to the second aspect. Remember, we have the content and the second aspect is the delivery. Again, we are going to put here, listening input in the classroom comes primarily in two modes. Can you tell me what are the two modes of the listening input in the classroom? I told you a few minutes ago, I told you what are the modes of listening input. Input is what we receive, remember? Input is what we receive. So what are the two modes of listening input in the classroom? No, nobody? What are the listening inputs in the classroom? We have two. No idea?
I don't know, but I don't sure that is you put the listening in very quickly or normal.
Normal speed?
Yes, normal speak or more slowly than normal.
Okay, yeah, all right. Yeah, so you're talking
Another
about,
more speed.
the speed. Uh-huh.
Yes, the speed. Probably, I don't know. I don't sure.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Any other idea?
Another provide learners different kind of knowledge.
Yeah, all right, the input. Remember, we're talking about the input. How the students receive.
Different kind of knowledge. The
Yeah,
learners
yeah. Okay, so through the listening, we are going to give them knowledge, yeah, the language maybe, or some cultural aspects. Yeah, all right. Any other one? Any other idea about the listening input? I told you a few minutes ago.
With an active listening.
Yeah, all right. Active listening. I'm gonna give you a clue. For example, you are listening to me, right? You are listening to me. This is one of the modes that we use as an input in our class. The teacher speaks, the students listen. Or maybe they could listen, no? They maybe go to the park, no? They can meet with foreign people from USA or any other English-speaking country, they could listen to people, right? Could be the teacher, could be other people. This is one mode. Another mode, or maybe they could listen each other, no? Student. This is one mode. The other mode, nobody. And we use a lot. As a teachers, we use a lot. And it's related to the opinion that Luis Vera put it on the chat. Yeah, start listening, okay. No, nobody else? Yeah, when we give them instructions, so they are listening to us. Notice, they are listening to us, but they receive another kind of listening.
¿Qué dice?
For example, no, when they listen to us. Excuse me, please turn off your microphones. Don't forget to...
que chucho mañana el desayuno.
A ver, por favor, ahí los micrófonos. No dejemos prendidos los micrófonos. Si no, vamos a escuchar cosas que no queremos. Ya, okay, so, remember, one is the live talk, the real listening, student, teacher, students, guest speaker, students. So in this context, listener may have the opportunity to influence the delivery. So they could adapt, they could interrupt the listening, what the other person is talking, or they could add some extra information, or maybe they could interrupt to say that they couldn't understand what the other person is speaking. So that's the meaning of here, no? They could influence the delivery of this listening, all right? So this is the live talk, real listening, students, teacher, students, guest speaker to students, and so on. So this is the live talk. For example, this is what are we doing now, right? So you are listening to me. Maybe you could interrupt, teacher, I couldn't understand that part, or maybe I asked you for some opinions and you give me your opinions, and then you continue listening to me, all right? So notice, this is the live talk. This is one of the modes that we can have towards students as an input, all right? Remember, input is what we receive. And the second mode, yes, Luis, it's based on really, I guess. Yes, that's it. Real interaction, right? Now, the second one is the recording. You have your test book, so maybe you download an audio from the internet and you make your students listen to that audio. But here, notice you could have this on a CD, DVD, or cassette. Well, nowadays we don't have cassettes. And it is generally speaking, none of this allows the listener to influence the delivery, all right? So they couldn't change that delivery, right? Because they just listen, and then maybe they are going to do some exercises, to assess the comprehension, but they couldn't change, right? This is the difference with the live talk. Live talk, you could interrupt, you can add some information, you can give your own opinion, or you can ask for speaking a little slow or louder, no? So you can, here says you can influence the delivery. In the other, no. The students just listen, no? You make your students listen to a conversation between two people, so they listen this conversation until it ends, right? Until it finishes, all right? Maybe sometimes the teacher could stop in some part when you are going to assess or you are going to practice some specific SAP skills. No? For example, if you made them to listen and complete a table, and maybe they couldn't understand, so you stop. No, yeah, I'm going to stop here, listen carefully, listen to the correct information or the correct answer for this part, and you can stop. Now you can change just a little bit, but not the listener, right? The listener couldn't change that, okay? So notice here the two kind of inputs. Remember, the two kinds of inputs, live talk and recording. Real, and the other one is not real. It's record, it's something that was recorded, all right? So here you have these two types. So according to this, we're going to make some questions too. Will I need to cut part of the recording because it is too long? Or is it long enough? So here you have this aspect of the length. A key factor is the length of the recording. Most students can only cope with a limited amount of input. Every time they listen, they need to process language at the same time as receiving more language. So need balance, you have to need a balance of intensive and extensive listening. What is that? Intensive and extensive listening. Remember that we talked about these two words, right? In the previous skill, intensive reading, extensive reading. The same happens here. Extensive listening, intensive listening. Could you remember what was the difference? Intensive and extensive?
Extensive is for pleasure.
Aha, yes. And intensive? What is the intensive? Extensive is for pleasure. You listen for pleasure to songs or to some audiobooks, no? Something that you like, no podcasts. Nowadays, you can listen to podcasts. Or maybe you watch a film, no? And you listen to what the actors, the characters are talking, to a series. No? So this is for pleasure. And the other, the intensive, what is the intensive? No, nobody else?
Intensive doesn't respond to a specific purpose, for instance.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay. But there is something more specific. Intensive, extensive for pleasure. Intensive, it's for, what is the purpose of intensive listening or intensive reading? No, remember, try to remember. We talked about this point. It's similar, it's the same. Intensive reading, intensive listening, extensive reading, they are the same. The difference, as I told you, is the kind of language, no? One is in a written language and the other is in the oral language. Yeah, remember, intensive is for academic purposes. So you're going to analyze the language. Yeah, this is the intensive one. When we make our students to listen a conversation, or maybe they are going to listen to a speech and they have to complete some notes, no? Or they have to recognize some structures or some words, some vocabulary. So this is the intensive listening. Or maybe they listen to a conversation, to a speech, and they have to analyze if the sentences written are false or true, all right? Or they might do the close test. They have to complete some spaces according to the listening. So this is the intensive listening. Remember, this is the intensive listening. So it's for academic purposes. in order to analyze the language, to learn the language. And the other one, the extensive listening, is for pleasure, all right? So they can listen to any piece of text that they like, songs, films, series, podcast, all right? So this is what they like, all right? Okay, so don't forget about it. No? So we need to have a balance, remember, we need to have a balance between the intensive and extensive listening. Now, is the recording clear? Will background noise affect comprehension? So this is the quality of recording. The quality of the recording is an important aspect of delivery. All machines contain distortion and lack of clarity. For example, if we compare to our situation, the virtual, sometimes when we share audio, and because of the internet connection, maybe you cannot hear so well, right? There is interruption, or you could listen to me as a robot. It happens a lot. For example, when I'm teaching to my students at school, they told me, teacher, I'm listening to you, but you are like a robot, or it's interrupted. And notice the internet connection is not so good. So here we must be careful with this. No? We have to be sure if the recording has a good quality, all right? Let's pass to the other ones. Are there many voices potentially causing confusion? Do the speakers talk too fast for my students? So this is the speed and the number of speakers. Rapid speech, for example, the BBC News headlines, no? So they speak so fast. It's more difficult for students than the speed rates of says. The more speakers there are, the more potential there is for confusion. No? When you have a conversation, 3, 4 people, 5 people together, so the students could get lost, no? Because there are a lot of people speaking and talking, giving ideas, opinions, and so on. And the other aspect is the accent. Is the accent familiar? Is it comprehensible? Some European commentators believe that a standard British is the best model. No? Some, not all, some of them. No? The BBC News, here this is the example, no? The BBC News, the standard British. Countries with more contact with the US, Brazil, or Japan, and sometimes our country. No? For example, in our country, I think we are more familiarized with the American accent than the British accent, no? Because the American accent is more commercial, no? Around the world. So we are more familiarized with the American accent than the British accent, all right? Most English in the world is spoken between non-native speakers, and teachers generally don't need to sound like the native speakers in order to provide good models for students to listen to, no? Sometimes as a teacher, we are so stressed, no? We are so stressed. Oh no, my accent is not perfect. It's not like a native speaker. It doesn't mean that you are going to speak English as you want, no? You have to have a good intonation, a good pronunciation, but at the other side, don't get too much stress if you don't have a perfect accent, no? So sometimes you could get stressed. You could get stressed. So remember that it's not so, if you want to say something like that, it's not so important, crucial, no? You have a perfect accent in order to be understood by your students, right? But as I told you before, it doesn't mean that you're going to speak English in a not good way, right? With a not a good intonation, with a not good pronunciation. No, you must have a good pronunciation, a good intonation, and try to acquire the accent, no? The accent that you want, no? Maybe British or American, all right? So it depends on you, okay? So this is related to the delivery part. Now we are going to compare again, yeah, the authentic material and the pedagogic material. Authentic input and a scripted input. Remember, the pedagogic is also called a scripted input. Yeah? Authentic input and a scripted input. So one of the aspects to consider, remember, in the authentic input, we have to overlap and interruptions between speakers, all right? We have a lot of interruptions. In the scripted input, So we have little overlap between speakers. Another difference is the normal rate of speech delivery, and the other is a slower delivery. Relatively is unstructured language. Here in the scripted, you have a structured language, more like a written language, similar to the written test. But in the other, in the authentic, in the real interaction, sometimes we're going to have some not structured grammatical. No? So the structure of the grammar is not so perfect when we speak. But in the other side, the scripted, it has a more structured language, similar to the written language. And the other one, in the authentic input, we have incomplete sentences with false starts, hesitation, etc. In the scripted input, so the sentences are complete, all right? Then we have the background noise and voices in the authentic. In the scripted, no background noise. Natural stops and starts. In the other, we have artificial stops and starts. And the last point is loosely packed information pad out with fillers. And in the other, we have densely packed information. This is related to density, no? So we have a lot of information sometimes in the scripted input, all right? So notice here the differences between the authentic and the scripted or pedagogic listening test or material, all right? Here we have some examples. Notice here these examples. What is authentic and what is pedagogic? Yes, Luis Vera. It's more important to deliver an understandable message rather than speaking with a particular type of accent. Yes, you're right. You're right. Okay, so tell me, what is authentic and what is pedagogic or scripted input?
Authentic is the green,
and
the pedagogic is the blue.
Excellent, that's it. So notice that in the authentic, the length of the sentences are not too long, right? They're quite long or maybe short. We have interactions, hesitations. For example, the man says, 3 or 4 times a week. Notice this is hesitate. When you have some doubts, you're not so sure, and you use this, 3 or 4 times a week, or you use some specific language. I'm keen on running. So you use some language, colloquial language, all right? What type of exercises are you keen on? And in the other side, notice in the other side, the dialogue is longer, all right? It's more dense, it's more dense. The structure, notice the structures. Here you have some poses, notice you have some poses, but they are not natural, they are artificial. And notice that we have here the structure, the kind of this is similar to the written language, all right? Is similar to the written language. So notice here the differences between the authentic and the scripted input, all right? Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using authentic material, authentic input? The advantages exposed to real language. There is factual acquisition, Textbooks do not include inaccurate language, maybe inspirational some students, used for various activities and tasks. There is a wide choice of styles, genres, and formality, and read or listen for pleasure. So here you have these advantages of the authentic, the authentic listening test. What are the disadvantages? Sometimes it's difficult to understand. the vocabulary may be not exactly what students need. They are rather difficult for beginners. Preparation of the tests and activities are often demanding and time-consuming. There are many various accents and dialects in listening, and the other one become outdated quickly. All right, so notice here we have the advantages of using authentic, and also we have some disadvantages too. That's why we must choose, all right? We must choose the correct, the appropriate listening test. So, according to your opinion, which is better, the authentic or the pedagogic input or the pedagogic listening test? What would it be better for you? Tell me your opinions. What do you think about it?
Both are important because the normal people speaking authentic
Yeah, all right.
information, but you need a specialization, or you try to speak very well. You need to listen in the not the real.
Yeah, all right. That's good, Juan Carlos. Thank you, thank you. Any other idea? Any other opinion? What do you think about it? Which is better? According to Juan, both are important. All right, both are important. Any other idea?
The blue one, teacher.
Excuse me?
Pedagogy.
The pedagogic for you is better.
Yes, teacher.
Why?
Because you understand more.
All right.
Yes, and you know more about the conversation.
Okay, all right. Okay, okay. Yeah, for your partner, it's better the pedagogic or scripted input. Any other one? Any other one?
I think it's better both, no? Because the pedagogic have a very improved form of the language, and the other one is the real speak, like people communicate their ideas, no? the real world.
Yes, that's right. That's a good point. So both, according to your partner, both are important. Okay, so here we are going to analyze, notice, when we teach a language, as I told you before, we must adequate these kind of materials. So a solution favored by many materials writers are authentic based language and semi-scripted recording. Is not completely scripted, semi-scripted recording. When we talk about the authentic based language, in other words, it is scripted, but more realistically than in the past. Try to make it more real, all right? When you use the script input, so you have to adequate it in order to become more real, more realistic. And the other one, semi-scripted recording, in which actors are given a task to accomplish and may be asked to include various language points. They then improvise the dialogue. So notice we are going to mix. We are going to make the authentic a little scripted, and the scripted, you have to make it a little authentic, more real. So we have to adapt this kind of listening to make it better for our students. No? As you told me, both are important. Yeah, both are important. They have their advantages and disadvantages, but we as a teacher must use both. All right? We must use both according to the level, no? For example, if you want to use authentic material, so try not to use it with the students when they are start learning English. No, it is advisable to put it then, yeah, not to get frustrated, because they could get frustrated easily and then they don't want to learn anything, all right? That's a crucial point. No, but my students could get the real as the accent, intonation, but they are not going to understand. So try to adequate. No, it is very important to adequate this kind of listening material, all right? So don't forget about it. Now, here we have one example of authentic-based activity. I don't know if you have heard about this activity, eavesdropping. Have you heard something about it? It was developed by Porter and Roberts in the year 1987. Eavesdropping activity. In order to help you, I'm going to show you a picture. What can you see in the picture?
Here,
A man with a glass.
wall by between at a glass.
Yeah, all right. So what is the purpose of this picture? So what is eavesdropping?
To listen.
Aha, what kind of listening?
Something prohibited.
Yeah, okay, something not permitted. What else? What else? Eavesdropping.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's
listening,
trying
but
to listen
hiding
something not
position.
permitted.
Yeah, all right. So I couldn't hear you so well because two of you were talking.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
when you listen to something not permitted, yeah, the other one?
He's
Yeah.
listening, but a hiding position.
Yeah, okay. So he's listening to somebody else's conversation. This is eavesdropping. Remember, eavesdrops when you listen to somebody else's conversation. It's not your conversation, but you are listening to this conversation, all right? As you told me, sometimes maybe you are hiding or you listen to this conversation accidentally, no? Maybe
Like a gossip?
Oh yeah, sometimes you are gossip, no? So this is the meaning of eavesdropping. So we are going to use this in our class. How? Notice here how we're going to use this in our class. This is related to authentic-based activity. So what can you do that? Students are told that they are guests at a party. Yeah, this is a situation, and that they can eavesdrop on conversations. They listen to short segments of real-world party conversations and complete a worksheet. Notice you are equating here the real conversation because they are going to listen to real conversations in which they note down what topic that people are talking about. They also indicate on the worksheet whether they are interested in the topic or not. Follow-up activities, so extra activities, could include other eavesdropping in real-world settings where English is spoken, taking notes on what is heard, and reporting back to the class. Notice, this is the activity that we use with the authentic material, authentic input. So they can listen to other students' conversation, or you can bring them some real conversations that happens in real life, and you could record it and they listen to it. And then what do they have to do? They have to take notes, or maybe they have to complete something. And at the end, not just listening comprehension, that they have to give their opinions. If they are interested, if they like the topic or not of the conversation. Notice you are using this authentic, yeah, it's authentic, but you are adapting it in order to make it pedagogic. All right? So here you have a mixing. For example, there is another activity similar to this that we use a lot. I don't know if you have used it before. In Spanish, it's a teléfono malogrado. Have you ever used this activity in your classes?
Yes, teacher.
Yeah, right. This is a kind of eavesdropping. So the student must listen to the other person and the speaker is speaking so softly, right? So the person have to listen carefully and then pass to the other one, and the other one listen again. And at the end, the information, the message is distorted, so it's not correct. No? And at the end, you can get a lot of information and it's so fun, right? This is so fun. Notice, entertain. And remember one of the factors that we were talking, entertain factor. It creates interest on listening to other people. This is real because they are going to listen to their own partners, their own classmates, not to a recording, all right? So you could use here authentic, yeah? So don't forget about it, okay? So here you have this activity based on authentic input or authentic material, yeah? Well, I think the time is getting over. Yeah? Next class, next session, we're going to talk about the activities, more activities. And now we're going to talk about activities, strategies. Yeah? And we're going to develop some of them. Yeah? So here we have finished with the theoretical part, and the next classes are going to be more related to activities, strategies. We started with this one. For example, next class, we are going to talk about I don't know if you have used this activity too, dictogloss. Have you ever heard about dictogloss?
No, teacher.
No.
No, teacher.
Nobody. Dictogloss, remember, it's like a dictation. Sometimes we, in order to assess our listening to our students listening, we dictate, not to our students, some sentence, but this is another kind of dictation, another kind of interaction. So I'm gonna show you also a video about it, all right? So that's all for today, Dan. Here, I want you to take care a lot, yeah, take care a lot. We are in this period, so take all the precautions related to your health, and we could see next week, all right? So thank you for your attention, for your participation. I hope that you could get some important information or helpful information for you according to your teaching, all right? Well, see you. Bye-bye.
See you,
Bye,
teacher.
See you, teacher.
Teacher,
See you
next
next
class.
Saturday.
Next Saturday.
Thank you.
Goodbye, teacher.
Okay, bye.